for joining us today for another episode on the Human Part of Humotech podcast. Today we're going to be talking with retired Lieutenant Colonel Jeremy Lewis, a native of Jeromesville, Ohio. Jeremy graduated from the Illinois Institute of Technology in 1996 with a degree in metallurgical engineering and was commissioned into the United States Army. Over his distinguished military career, he served in various leadership roles, including deployments to Bosnia, Iraq, and Afghanistan, earning numerous awards for his service. After retiring from the Army in 2017, Jeremy joined Tesla, where he led the service parts operations team for North America. Jeremy, welcome. We're excited to have you. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us today.
Thank you for letting me come be part of this. I'm excited, just to be able to spend time with you and share and get your guys' insights and then, provide whatever insights I can. But no, thank you so much.
Well, we're excited to have you here. It's a real honor. So you have a really interesting background, and I really want to dive into to start kind of talking about both really distinct parts of your career. So as a retired lieutenant colonel from the U.S. Army and the former head of Surface Parts Operations North America at Tesla, you have this really unique perspective on technology.
I think in my time, there wasn't a whole lot, right? I think there was conversations, I would see things about how technology and things that would be developed to help. And I guess you could argue the way some of our vests were designed and things like that would help us carry the loads. But, you think of things that were being talked about to be developed and technology wise, what are very focused on how does a soldier be able to carry loads that were increasing in weight over time? As we put more and more technology with soldiers, that also comes with added weight. So not only are you carrying, you think of a vest that's protective, and it's just heavy to have the plates and stuff like that, but also then the additional ammunition, the water requirements. And then if you go into the future, you think about the technology we want on soldiers. So that includes batteries, and batteries are heavy, right? If we want to, in terms of not only the communication side, but the ability to command and control things, say drones and sights and things, and helmets that have sights that allow us to see things that maybe we wouldn't normally be able to see with our normal eyes. So infrared and things like that. So, that requires additional weight for batteries to manage those. So, what an exoskeleton does is it begins to, it really adds a whole nother capability, because as the soldiers take more technology, it enables them to have more technology. And so I think that's a big part of that. I think as we look into the future, what is a soldier, they're going to be commanding, controlling, it's every soldier's a sensor. Every soldier has a capability. They're going to be like really tenfold of what they are today in terms of their capability, to be able to see and control and command and to communicate, much more than when I was in the service. And I thought we had a lot of capability compared to, say, the soldiers of Vietnam and World War II. The soldier of the future, we go into 2030, 40, and 50. They're going to be multitasking with AI. And then again, I talk about the technology they're going to have, in terms of robotics, and maybe a series of robots that are out there on the battlefield with them, serving to their left and right, rather than it's just a person to their left or right. There's actually, robots that are to their left and right that they're managing and syncing up, while they also have visibility above them through drones. And so in order to see all that, you have to have, imagine screens and different things. And that, like I said, that takes battery technology and additional weight, in addition to the ability to protect themselves and to service themselves in terms of being able to drink water and rations and on all that. So, and then you think of environments of say working in a mountainous environment where you have to climb hills and navigate terrain that's very challenging. That's not easy when you have all that gear on.
Yep.
And so, exoskeletons will help them with that. So that's like, say, the battlefield side, like probably extreme side of it. But also then you take a few steps back from logistics. You think of the soldiers that are in the logistics field, and they're, moving around pallets of things. And, the reality is, when we would deploy into an environment, right, you send, obviously, everybody thinks of the infantry and all that, but it's really this huge logistics tail that goes in with them to support them. And one of the things that you always need to put on the first plane in is a forklift, right? Like it's always interesting to me that sometimes we forget about that. Like the first piece of equipment that kind of needs to hit the battlefield first is a forklift. The ability to move around equipment and supplies is super critical. So imagine, the ability of an individual with some type of future exoskeleton, and even the soldiers that are deploying to do the fight. They now have the capability to do some of those logistics things because of their ability to lift and move things that normally would take, say, a forklift. And again, we're talking pretty heavy equipment when we talk about forklifts, but that is possibly the future. Is that. And so, when soldiers have the capability to move supplies around a lot more, you can reduce the number of soldiers, say, in an area. You can reduce the number of the equipment quantities in an area. You can drop that stuff. Soldiers can drop out of an airplane with that kind of gear on versus have to palletize it and go through rigging and doing all that. So it kind of changes. Because what you're always trying to do in these situations, you're trying to reduce your footprint. You don't want to have this massive with the logistics tail when you're bringing a lot of stuff and it starts increasing your requirement and your footprint, and then that requires additional equipment. So if you can reduce the footprint, I think that's going to be huge for future military operations also. So, something to think about with just the logistics side. And again, I don't know if you want to go into the VA side of soldiers.
I would like to. So I would
Yeah.
like to pivot now, and
Okay.
I've got the perfect segue. I would love to now get your perspective on exoskeletons as they relate to veterans and the possibilities there. So Humotech, you are an advisor for our company. Thank you. It's been really
It's
awesome.
just I'm fortunate to follow you guys and because this is exciting technology, right? Like there's certain things, and my wife will tell you, I really believe there's certain things that are the future. We talk coming from Tesla, right? Before I joined Tesla, I said the future is electric and it is autonomous. Always have known that, have said that before I joined the company, and firmly believe it. The future is enabled, I should say, right? I love thinking that way. Like the future is enabled from a human perspective, and that human enablement, has to be through, exoskeletons and other wearables and things like that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the endorsement. Yeah, we're really blessed to get to work with a lot of veterans and in the clinical studies that we're a part of right now. We work with the Seattle VA, Walter Reed Military Medical Center, a lot of really great Brooke Army Medical, Minneapolis VA. And I'm curious about your perspective on how wearable devices, how you think the future could look for veterans who maybe have mobility challenges, limb loss, limb difference, even, and how wearables could help them. Maybe even your experiences with people who've had mobility challenges who've served, and what you think this could mean for those individuals who've served our country.
Yeah, I think unfortunately over the years, I've visited at Brooks, like I've been to Brooks Army Medical Center there, and visited soldiers who were hit by IEDs, and know soldiers throughout my career that throughout the different deployments and stuff that suffered pretty debilitating injuries, and it's life changing, and the Army's done a great job, I would say, in the VA as a whole. There's been a ton of focus and a ton of investment. I see. I think prosthetics technology really developed so much because of, as we went through these wars and the war on terror over the last 20 years, it was a capability that was needed, and we had all these soldiers. As we're saving more lives on the battlefield, which is great, right? If we look at the rates compared to, say, other wars, we've saved so many lives. So many people the medical field did a tremendous job. However, that also meant that soldiers returned home with injuries, a lot more injuries than what we'd seen in the past, I would say. So, I think, and again, it goes back to enabling, right? It's enabling soldiers, the ones that were wounded that say, we could start with, say, lost a hand, lost a foot, right? That's the thing when we talk about this too. We think of, it's small. Sometimes it's smaller. Like, 'cause sometimes we think of soldiers that maybe have completely lost complete function, but it's also just maybe having lost a finger or, or lost a hand or lost a foot, and now enabling that soldier get back to fully being able to be functional, or even maybe better than what they were before. And so there's opportunity there. And then again, as we go along that spectrum of understanding, maybe have lost an entire leg or lost an arm, or to the extreme part of maybe they're lost functionality from the waist down or even the neck down. So, how I do believe that there's a future where those individuals, again, I don't know what that would look like for all, but how they've gained or enabled back to where they were before they left in a different way. It's a different type of enablement, but maybe they're able to perform more functions and things like that. It's kind of like when I was at Tesla and we would talk about electric cars with the distances. People would say, well, they're limited in their distance, and I was like, well, imagine a future where electric car can do more than a gas car, can drive further and longer and do more than a gas car. It's the same thing, I think, sometimes with exoskeleton and wearables, how these individuals now are not only performing what they did, but actually able to perform more than what they were before. And that's, that might be, I don't know, is that 5 years, 10 years, 50 years down the way? I don't know. But if we think that way, and I think the technology's there, that we'll move in that direction, and it's a great thing.
That's definitely the goal state. I know that we're eager to see at Humotech how data can help with the prescription process for individuals who are getting prescribed a prosthetic foot, and what that could look like, and using robotics to do that. We get really excited about the future for these individuals. We've been working with the DoD and the VA. Excited to see this technology now transfer to the civilian side, and what this could mean for right now. The crazy number of people who live every day with limb loss and limb difference. So a lot to do there, and eager to see how this space can grow and change and innovate in the next 5-10 years.
And I think with like, we not only are veterans, the diabetes rate, type 2 diabetes is on the rise. So not only do we see that in the veteran community, we see that in the civilian community, and my dad and so forth. And what comes along with that, with type 2 diabetes, is a lot of amputations and things like that, as they lose, they have the nerve damage and so forth in their limbs. And so, I see that now when I go into the nursing homes, to visit and spend time with my dad as he's going through rehab. I just yesterday I was there and I saw a gentleman who had lost his leg, and he's in a wheelchair. But imagine how that could change for him with this technology and so forth. So, it is the future. It is going to happen. It is going to enable people. And that's why, you guys are at the forefront of it. And I think it's just such I always like to, just when I get to be like in this case, just a little bit is so awesome to be part of something that is literally going to be a big part of our future. Like, starts off small and becomes something huge. And that's the same thing, with, like I said, with EVs and autonomous vehicles and things like that. So it is we're going to see this. It's going to be normal. There's a point where it'll be normal. At the beginning, there'll be the YouTube videos. We'll see this stuff on media of somebody doing this, just like the Cybertruck in a way, right? But we'll see these things happening, and then it'll become normal. It'll be the normal thing, and so yeah.
Yeah, that's the future. Well, I want to kind of shift a little bit now and talk about. So as you know, I'm the operator at Humotech. So I'm very interested in your experience, kind of leading and growing teams. So I want to shift a little bit, because I think our audience could really benefit. I'm sure we have some folks watching this video who are maybe founders, or they're a small tech company, or they're just maybe thinking about how to scale up a team. Maybe talking about, from your perspective, What are the key factors to consider when you're trying to scale operations in a growing tech company? I know you worked at Tesla and you definitely scaled there. Maybe you can talk a bit about that experience growing a team. And then, and also in the Army, I know you led in the Army as well, obviously. So talking about, your experience there and things that you think a tech company should think about.
Yeah, no, this stuff I do get excited about, so I might ramble all over the place, who knows? But, fortunately, when I was in the Army, and again, it's just, I would say luck in a way, right? Like how this works, and I wouldn't say that. Maybe in some cases I was the very first into a situation, or I was very close to being the very first. When I went into Bosnia, it was very early in that Bosnia when we went into there. But then, I was a company commander in Iraq in 2003 during the initial invasion into Iraq. So, every time I used to tell my soldiers, like every every step we take forward, we're the first person to do that from the U.S. As we're walking into Baghdad and things like that. And then, I was part of the very first transition teams that were helping train and develop the Iraqi forces. And then I got to be part of the very first soldiers in US 4A that stood up and be the first planner, for logistics and sustainment for US 4A as we were developing the surge and trying to plan all the forces coming in there. And so, basically all these different experiences. When I went to Iraq or Afghanistan, we were the first U.S. forces of that scale in RC, Regional Command North. And then when I got to Tesla, it was the same thing, right? I was the very first, say Mid-Atlantic regional manager. I was the very first Great Lakes manager. So what I mean by that is in each one of these circumstances, got to be it's really an entrepreneur, right? Like in a way, I was a founder. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but we were startups, right? It was going into an environment where there's not basically established ways of doing business, and you have to create and develop in these situations. You have capabilities around you, and fortunately with the military, I have budgets that are pretty big and stuff like that. But you do have to have this ability to say, okay, there's nothing here. Nobody's handing me anything or much. And so through that, I have to be the person to build it. And so, same thing with Tesla. I was the very first, the service parts operations for North America. It started off as just one. It didn't exist before me. And then, we drove up from 1 to 2 to almost 900 personnel total, actually. One, I think the most important aspect is your mindset. It starts off with mindset. I think, are you someone, first yourself as a leader, are you someone who can, and I'm sure Josh is this way, right? He's single-mindedly focused on believing and saying, okay, I understand that there was nobody before you guys, right? Like it isn't like somebody handed you this.
Yeah.
No, you've got to be able to build it. So you have to have that mindset of, where are you and where do you see this going, right? Like that vision as a leader. The second part, though, I would say, is finding people that have that type of mindset that can deal with that uncertainty. If you're hiring people or bringing people in that they really struggle with they're used to somebody, coming in and training them and developing them and showing them what to do. It's going to be challenging for them. Now, some people get excited about that, but that's the people you have to hire, the people that are just excited by this whole idea that there's this, fog out there. And I've got a leader who has a vision, a very good vision of where we are and what the vision could look like and what the future could look like. And so they're willing to partner with you and they can deal with that uncertainty. And they just get excited about it. And so every day they show up. And of course, this happens, I think, in any of these environments. When I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, and when I went to Tesla, you get so excited about it that you work on it all the time and you're thinking about it all the time. But you got to have people around you that are excited about that and willing, and they can see that vision. And so first, it takes that leader to have that vision, because when I went over and took over the service parts, right? I say took over, I was asked to just create it from nothing. My employee number 2. His name was Julian. And when I sat down with him, I just laid out, I said, like, here's where we are. I had a plan. And I said, this is where we are. This is where we need to be. And these are the big rocks, that we need to do and that we're going to do that's going to get us from point A to point B. And, and Julian hadn't been on my, like, I'm actually, I'm actually trying to recruit him versus hire him because he was internal to Tesla. But, he got a smile on his face and he's like, man, I'm excited about this. I want to be part of this. And so one, I was able to sell it to him, but it was so great to have him want to come over because he was so motivated. And, and he would talk about that, 3 months later, 6 months later, a year later, he would talk about how he remembers that and how I had a plan and I had a vision as a leader and he wanted to be part of it. And so it's not about me though, it was about him. And then because and as we brought on more people like him, you get this momentum because they're just so engaged and so want to be part of this, and then their ideas start flowing in. And I think as a leader, that's the next thing. You think about, okay, you have to have a vision, you have to hire people with the vision, but you can't let people, like, we can't go swimming off in all directions. And so what we did is we brought in really like 10 to 14 experts that had already been kind of doing, supply chain operations. We had a conference. I just brought them all in very quickly. And we said, okay, what are the most important things? What are the things that have to happen every day? Because we have the vision, we have like our operational ways, the ways we're going to do this, but it really then comes down to the daily behaviors. What are the things that we're going to have to do every day and every week and every month that are going to make that happen? And so we sat down with, people that were doing the daily tasks. Like, they weren't part of the team yet. They wouldn't work for me at this point, but we brought in the experts that did these things every day. And again, you could very quickly, some of those, they were very comfortable with dealing with the uncertainty, and so they could say, okay, these are the things that we need to do. There were a few people that really struggled with this, and those you have to identify. You can tell that they're probably not going to be the best for your team in the future, but they did contribute, which is important. And so then we're able to identify the daily tasks, and then you got to be able to measure those. Did those tasks get done every day? What's the results of those tasks? And those become really honestly what your KPIs and what become your leading indicators and your lagging indicators. And I think that's another thing is for leaders, are you able to develop those and then measure those every day? Because if you can get that done, now all of a sudden, like when we started hiring people and bringing people on the team, it was amazing how when everybody was doing the right things, how quickly, like, it's just like a train that just starts creating momentum, and it just goes and goes and goes. And then we had our abilities to see that. We built these, really, I didn't build them. Again, it's hiring the right person that can build these things for you, that can help you see what's being done every day. And then the which is the leading indicators, and then the results of that, the lagging indicators upstream, like the big things that you want to see get done are starting to happen and come into fruition. And then that gets really exciting, and I'm sure you guys are seeing that, right? From when you started to where you are now, just seeing things starting to occur. And so I guess I'll pause there because like I said, I could keep going, and I don't know if I'm heading in the right direction, but those were important. Those were the kind of big things, I think, at the very beginning.
So, kind of running with that a little further, how do you balance long-term strategic planning with the immediate needs of a rapidly scaling operation?
Yeah.
Like,
So
from your perspective, how do you do that?
So one, you got to have the plan, right? You build that, you set that vision. I used to always use this example. I'm trying to draw a little circle here, half circle on here. But I used to always tell my teams, like, imagine, when sailors used to sail, across the globe, discovering, again, they're moving out into the world that had never been discovered, say, and the captain of the ship, though, right? Like the people on the ship could only see from here to here, right? They can only see on the horizon. That's all they see. And that's what they're looking at every day. Some people aren't even looking out on the horizon. They're just looking at their ship. But it's the captain who can see this point, but really, they can see over the horizon, right? They can see here. They can actually see the other side of the globe, and they have that vision. And whether it's exactly the way they envision it, probably not. It's probably not 100%. We know that from looking at different historical explorers over the centuries, but they had that vision and they were able to see it, and so they're able to keep people motivated. So what I'd say is you have to get that strategic vision and mission, right? You have to do that, and then from there you break it down to the essential things, because In the military, I had a much bigger budget, but saying being at Tesla, you don't always have a big budget. So what you have to do is you have to literally say, what are as a commander or a captain or a leader, a founder, um, say, okay, what are the most important things? These are, first of all, like I said, you backwards plan from here to here to here to here. But what are the most important things here at the beginning that I have to do that's going to move us forward? And sometimes that movement, like I would tell my guys, look, guys, we're just maybe taking one little step forward. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're allowing the resources to catch up. And then we take another step forward and we allow the resources to catch up. And we're just literally, but eventually these little side steps become like it almost, and then it's like this, right? The step is a little bigger because we have a little bit more resources and we can move forward. But the important part is what you can't do is that you've wasted resources that maybe are letting you step back. And I'll be truthful, that's going to happen a little bit. You're going to invest in things, but if you don't have this plan, right, like out here, or if you do have that plan, I should say, let me talk about it that way. If you do have that plan and you can align a backwards plan to the most important steps, then you're able to put the resources for it. And you're going to see, like I was saying earlier, you're going to see that, hey, that investment paid off. And then you take another one, and that investment paid off, and we're moving forward. Sometimes I'll tell you this: if you think about the people that are on the ship with you, and I'm an Army guy, so I hate talking Navy, but if you think of like being on the ship here, your investment into your people that you have with you there can actually sometimes, even though it seems like you only have the resources to take a little step, they can actually give you the power to take one of these steps. And so, getting everybody aligned, and there's so many books that talk about that, right? There's, but getting everybody aligned, all of a sudden it's sometimes like that beanbag race where you tie people's legs together, right? Like there's like big steps that you can take just because of pure alignment that help a small company. And that's why I say it's so critical to hire the right people that can see that, because they can help you take these big steps at the beginning. Eventually you're going to need like these individuals that help people, to help with the day to day when they have there are people that when you give them a defined role, they seem to outperform these visionaries, these people that you hired at the earlier that do help you take these big steps. Mm-hmm. But, so that's the phases, right? You got to have the right people that are able to help you take the big steps. And then eventually, if, you hire these individuals that are just so good at the day to day, that they are great when you give them those tasks that are defined, and so forth. And I think that's part of it, like, because you have very little resources at the very beginning, and you need people that are really highly bought in, because they're going to help you take bigger steps than you originally thought you could take. But you also have to be defining those steps very clearly, so you're not wasting resources on those. And I don't know if that's it too, because people will ask, they want to buy, you want to buy computers, you want to buy technology. I would tell you, you don't want to over leverage yourself, right? What you want to do is make sure you have all these smart investments. You're going to have to make some investments. You have to take some risk, but make sure that risk is very much aligned with what you're trying to achieve, so you're not wasting anything. And again, I think there's going to be, I know the one guy from Shark Tank, he always says 25 hours, 8 days a week, right? Like that's what I think what he says, which he's right. Like, and weirdly enough, I didn't start my own company, but when I was in the Army, when I was in those situations, I was definitely working 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. And the same thing when I went to Tesla. People ask me about, well, how was the transition out of the Army? I said, I don't know. I don't miss the Army because I feel like I'm just in another branch of the military. It's just a different uniform. It's the same drive. And I guess I want to take a step back there because I wanted to think about it. It just came to me again, which is something I would say quite a bit, was being part of a mission-driven organization is huge, meaning purpose-driven, I should say. In the Army, I had a clear purpose, an important purpose. But when I went to Tesla, that purpose was huge to me too. And that's why I get excited about your company, about Humotech, because that's a purpose. There's a huge purpose there. And when you get the people, like when we would hire at Tesla, we'd always ask them, like, why Tesla?
Mm-hmm.
And some of the individuals would talk about, they want to be close to the technology. They want to, improve in pay raise or a position or something along those lines. Typically, I wouldn't hire those individuals as much unless they would really expound into, again, the purpose. When they would tell me that they're so excited about being part of the future and how Tesla's going to change the world, and they would just want to be part of that, like, that's powerful. Those are the individuals then you're looking for, because they're going to be working 25 hours, 8 days a week, because they just have a passion for it. They have a passion. They can see it and they want it so bad. And they don't want it for themselves. They want it for everybody else. That's the other side of it, I would say. It's this, we talk about servant leadership and we talk about these other things, but it's really when people that see what it does for other people. Like, because inside they want to change the world so badly for those people. I know I'm sure there's people who think that everything I did every day was for myself, maybe, but honestly, that's not what kept me up, in to work 25 hours a week, 8 days a week. It was because I wanted it, for the love of my country, but also like my soldiers, to protect them, to take care of them, for those that were on the other side that we're trying to work with. Maybe it was a Bosnian civilian that I believe that we're helping them. When I was in Iraq, I would see the children and I want to make a difference for them. And then, like when I was at Tesla, right, thinking about how we're changing the world, we're going to reduce accidents. We're going to make the world more sustainable. We're going to provide autonomous driving, which would, again, allow my dad to have the ability to hop in a car and be able to go to the store, go to a drive-in and get a sandwich that he really loved. But so many other people, right? You get that inside of you, and you just want to change the world, in that way for them, not for you. And that's the same thing with you guys, right? Like, you can see that future and what you're going to be able to do through, wearables and exoskeletons and things like that. That it drives you. That if you rest, I mean, you're not gonna. It's not gonna help those people in the future, and so that's what it's about, I think, right? So sorry, I get off tangent, but it's that passion that you get, and that's what you need to have at the very beginning with your team. Everybody on that team has to be able to see that vision. And again, I will say that the vision does start with, in this case, it'd be Josh, right? It starts with that leader having that vision. I mean, Elon has done it. I mean, Steve Jobs has done it. There's great generals out there that do it. There's just so many, great leaders that create that vision of the world that drives everybody in that direction.
Yeah, and I think you're actually kind of leading nicely into my next question, which is, how do you foster a culture of innovation and openness to change in your organization? Because as we know, like especially in startup world for sure, or small tech, high tech, fast growing, fast paced, any tech company, any company really that's trying to make change and trying to move quickly, that culture is so important. So how do you think you foster that kind of culture in an organization and kind of get the team and everyone aligned in that way? And you kind of talked about it a little bit,
but we talked about hiring and all that, but trust, number one. Like, I think of TJ who worked for me. I mean, he knows this, which is trust fast, right? Like if you've hired the right people, like they're like, there's something magical about it. Like, these people that are around you, just trust them. Just like an unbelievable amount of trust you have to instill in them, or give to them. Just let them go. Like they've got the vision. They know what we need to do. They've got the passion, right? If you've got those things aligned, just now extend the trust to them to allow them to go out and do it. And then, obviously these like touch bases, I would do one-on-ones, at least once a week, but those conversations, you'll know when you've hired the right people, because those conversations are so magical, because it's this dialogue that goes back and forth where you're both you're just talking through where we are versus where we're going. And you can tell they're just out there creating and innovating and doing things and giving you the feedback, and they're giving the feedback to the whole team too, right? Like, they're so team based, because at the end of the day, those individuals are mission focused, right? They're not looking for credit. They're not looking for anything. They want the same thing that you want. And so you trust them to go do that. And, so being able to extend an immense amount of trust to them to go out and then fostering that environment.
I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was going to say, but you get this, there's this good dialogue that happens because at the end of the day, too, they're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. And so how do you extend grace to each other in that process of, hey, this didn't go the way we quite the way we thought it was going to go. Or the results weren't quite the way you thought, right? And again, if you've built you've had these good dialogues back and forth through your one-on-ones, because the one-on-ones are your relationship building. Again, I think people with one-on-ones, people will say, don't do one-on-ones. I think it's micromanaging and things like that. If you're doing your one-on-ones where it's micromanaging, they're the wrong one-on-ones. One-on-ones are literally just, you're setting up time because it's precious. It's a relationship. It's like, not only do you want to talk to this person because you care about them and are excited about it, they care about you and they're excited about it. And the one-on-one is just this great dialogue that happens that grows both of you, not only personally, but also in the professional environment, and then grows the whole team and then the organization and moves them forward. That's what it does when you do that correctly, because you're like breathing life into each other. That's how you, I think, build great teams and then keep everybody aligned, and then again, we do have these, there's books out there on it, like Death by Meeting and things like that. There's so many books on all this stuff, but so I don't want to claim credit for anything, to be honest with you, because I don't think I've done anything original. I think it's just the only thing I've done is I like to learn a lot. So I like to read, but I also like to listen to other people and what they're saying. And then I just love I loved my teams. I loved being part of those guys, and women that had my team. That was just, it was fun, but it's the investments. And then once you get that team, it starts building momentum.
I want to ask you about how you would describe your leadership style and how it has evolved over your career.
Yeah. So I think, I've been asked this before usually. And again, it's hard. It's, you don't want to say it yourself, right? I'd rather say, hey, why don't you, maybe talk to people that have worked for me and so forth, and let them kind of describe. But I guess what I would say I'd like to believe and I would aspire to, and again, not all cases probably occur, as I think every leader goes through different phases of their leadership style. But I have been told that my leadership style is transformational. And what that means is just, the ability to help people in their teams really, change over time in a positive way, right? So helping the individuals, transform for who they, I was just talking to a gentleman that worked for me just today. And he was, his words, I was talking about how much he's come along and how he's developed in his ability to lead teams. And he just said to me, he goes, I wasn't able to do that before you were my leader. And that was a great compliment, right? It just, and he has no reason to say that to me. I mean, he doesn't work for me anymore, and I'm not in the business world anymore. So, but he said that, and, the ability to transform other people, to help them develop and get better. I mean, really, honestly, that's the most rewarding thing. I would try to encourage leaders. I would say to them, to this day, if you watch a football game, you don't see very many people when they score a touchdown, all of a sudden kind of break down in tears in the fact that they scored a touchdown, right? But they'll big play, big touchdowns, you see them celebrate and they're so happy. And that happens not even in professional, but also in college and high school. But then all of a sudden they pan over into the stands, right? And there you see, maybe it's mom, maybe it's dad, maybe it's a sister or brother coach. And you can you'll start seeing them cry. And they just have this joy, right? They have this joy. And I've seen coaches cry and I've seen leaders cry when they see somebody that they've developed and they've transformed go out and be successful. And so I think that's part of, who you want to be. Again, I don't want to say that's who I am, but I do know I love seeing other people basically transform and succeed and being part of that journey and helping and investing in them in the right ways. I would also say, though, there's, if you go back, you say, okay, where were you at in your early career? I think we start off probably, the ultimate goal is that you're highly an informal leader, and you're using basically or informal authority, I should say, and you're using less formal authority. But I think in your, in your junior, you kind of start off leveraging probably a lot of formal authority, right? Because you're young and you believe, you've been given this title or position and this authority, and sometimes, you end up leveraging that early on, and people are doing things because you told them to, in a way. And ideally you move away from that, right? You move away from having people that are doing things because you told them to do it, but really they're doing it because they're bought into your vision. We go back to that, right? They're bought into your vision. They have a passion for what you're doing and what the team is doing, and the fact that you're investing in them, and they can see the fact that they're getting better. You're coaching them, not only in just what needs to get done, but in their personal and professional life. And so there's that. Probably, this would be a great, graph that if somebody maybe already built it or somebody could build it, that just shows, an experienced leader versus an experienced leader, formal authority versus informal authority, the importance of, direct. Actually, I'm pretty sure the 1 Minute Manager actually has a chart like this somewhere in there, but like direct leadership versus full trust and indirect leadership. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I don't have to cite it, but like I can kind of picture the 1 Minute Manager, and they have like a chart in there and things like that. I think it just takes time sometimes on that. You got to get your repetitions in there as a leader too. But I think if you have a vision of hey, I just want to be a better leader, and I want to be there for people, and you can grow yourself. You can train yourself. You can listen to other people. And so, reading different books on leadership to help you get there. Like I said, when I was retiring, maybe I shouldn't retire. Maybe that, but I think I was getting better and better. I wouldn't say I definitely wasn't perfect. I would say that as a leader, there's times where I had to be very direct. And I think, unfortunately, even at Tesla, there was times when I had to let people go. In doing so, I made sure, though, I tried to coach them, to success, and pull alongside them and help them along the way before we had to move on to the next step. So, but yeah, I think for any leader, I think you should aspire to be someone. And again, I don't know, there's probably new terms out there too. I don't know if transformational is the best word, but I think being a leader that, one has a great vision, can build purpose and inspire people, but not just doing that, but also can then also do the right things in terms of laying out what they need to do when they need to do it, but then investing in them, right? Just what's the word I'm trying to think what the word. I mean, I say invest, but just spilling into them, really coming alongside them and making them feel like excited to be part of the team and part of this mission in general. Because again, your people will just, when they're fully bought into what you're trying to achieve, like, and you trust them to go out and do the things that are going to get us there, man. Think each one of those individuals every day when they wake up, they're just out there. They wake up in the morning thinking about, like, how can I help do this, and how am I doing and helping us get there? They're not thinking about all the problems and stress of, like, do I have a job? You want to create, I guess that's too, right? You want to create safety for people. Like, there's times in multiple places I've been where organizations don't create safety, meaning that person, the first thing they wake up is worried about their job. They're worried about working for are they going to get yelled at? Are they going to, is there going to be something negative that's going to happen to them? And if you can create safety, they wake up thinking about that vision, and they're thinking about how are they going to contribute to that vision and make a big difference. That's huge, because now they'll be brushing their teeth, they're going to be taking a shower. Like, that's bandwidth that you can't always, you just don't, if you can get that, right, that's exciting. And I think, and I say that because, one, I've been like that. Two, I've had people who tell me this, right? They sir, I wake up in the morning, or, hey, Jeremy, I wake up in the morning and this is what I think about. But I don't know, this would be a good transition question a little bit. You also got to take care of, like, the people that get like that. And I think as an entrepreneur, if you think about people that are startups, is how do you create balance too? Forced balance. Something I was never good at myself. I had to retire in order to create balance. Um, but I would tell my teammates all the time, like, go take care of yourself, take care of your family. If they tell me something that they need, I was like, just take care of your family, go do that. Have somebody pass away, take time, you know, um, that's a hard balance, but you've got to give people that
Yeah,
also.
I think especially in, I talk to a lot of my peers who are also working in, fast moving, fast paced tech, startup life, and that balance, and how as leaders do we really create that healthy culture at the very beginning? Or how do you help your team learn a new way? Like this is the way, and the way is
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
not gonna work, we're not going to work on the weekends because that's, not healthy, and we're going to have healthy boundaries. And like, how do you establish new boundaries if there's been a culture that's maybe felt different in the past? So definitely something we take really seriously at Humotech, and we're working on. I know we've talked about that a bit, Jeremy, but yeah,
And
I'm curious. Oh, go ahead.
no, and I say the leaders are the ones that set that standard, right? Like everybody's going to follow what the leader does, not only what they say, but what they do. And
Mhm.
again, I just, when I say that, it hits me a little hard because I know I wasn't always the leader that was, doing in a way, meaning that I would tell people to go take time, but then they see me not taking time. And so therefore they wouldn't take time
Yeah,
themselves. And,
yeah. I
that's
I
hard.
I
Yeah.
understand that as well. But yeah, I think the fact that you communicated though, and you made the point of like, this is what I, think is acceptable and good and healthy. Like that's, there's, your boundary, and then they, employees kind of create their own boundaries too. And you hope that they meet you at the 50-yard line with that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm curious about how important mentorship has been in your career, and what role it's played in your approach to leadership, and the different kinds of, mentors that you've had over the span of your career.
Yeah. So I guess, when I think of mentorship, but I guess I think of the people who are the investors, I guess I would say. Um, that's probably the best way for me, the way that I look at it is I've had some amazing investors, like people who invested in me throughout my entire path. Like I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for investors in Jeremy Lewis. So, um, and the reason I say it like that too is because I think sometimes we use the word mentorship, like we think of like there's this formal thing and then there's this long periods of time. And like for me personally, it's been like maybe it's just sometimes just a little thing, like a short period of time or something, but it was a huge investment. Like it was just this investment that changed my life. And so I guess I'd go back to I don't want to get into like a whole autobiography here, but I definitely want to call out like the people like at Hillsdale High School that invested, like they had investments in me that I didn't even, that I, like I would, they got me on this trajectory real early and just did things that like appall me. I think of Mr. White who, he paid for my ACT, right? He told me to take this test and then he paid for it. Like that was an investment, right? I don't know what it cost, but he invested in me. He didn't get any shares though, but he invested in me and that have put me to where I am today. Because I would have never went off to college, right? I would have never got a scholarship. I would have so many different things would happen. But the teachers too there that fought for me, took time for me. In college, I think of people that took time, right? And I think again when I got into the Army, all the different leaders, senior leaders that maybe pulled me aside. But and that's the other thing I think with the word mentor is you think of somebody who's maybe senior to you, where honestly investors don't always have to be senior to you, right? I've had these investors, like I think of my first sergeant when I was a company commander, Romeo Montez, who he invested in me every day. And to this day, he invested in me. He's probably, possibly, I think about it, one of my biggest investors over time because he still invests in me. He spends time, like we don't talk all the time, but and again, when you think about that relationship, I'm the company commander, he's the first sergeant, so technically, I use the word technically, he works for me, right? Like I was his raider, but
Mhm.
I'm 26, he's like 36, right? And he's got so much more experience, and he invested in me, right? And he's someone who I took that investment. I valued it. I learned from it, and he developed me and made me better. Even when I probably wasn't my best, he helped get me back on track to be my best. And so it's huge. I think that's it. I think, you got to ask yourself, now you as a small company and any small company, or who are your investors? And I know that term, we think of money, but it can be so much more than money, right? It's like the things that really take you from, like, again, I'll just say this, as a kid maybe out in California who's living in a van, you know, my parent, and to where I am today, retired at 50 years old, and was able to help go do some amazing things, and I didn't do it. I did it zero, to be honest with you, I think on my own capability, and did it so much on the capability of so many people that took time and invested in me in little ways. So, appreciate those investors, right? And this is the other thing I think I'm going to throw out something there too, because I've been talking a little bit with this. I'm trying to get my kids to understand this, which is the people, like the ability to say, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and asking somebody for help.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the other side of those. Like I believe this, the people that really know how to do things, they are so willing to invest in you and show you how to do things. If you're willing to say, I don't know, and humble yourself and say, I have no idea how to do this. So many people, like, I don't think I got, like, if people think I'm smart, I'm not very, I don't think of myself as smart. I think it's really honestly the reinvestment that I'm doing basically in somewhere else, passing it along because somebody else spent that time with me. Somebody else took the time to explain something to me, in a very simple way of something I didn't know how to do. And so the ability, and the only thing I get credit for is the fact that I was willing to say, I don't know. Or I remember when I was a major and this lieutenant colonel in Afghanistan, because I was constantly looking at anything he was writing down. He'd be writing something down and I'm looking over his shoulder. He'd be doing something and I'd be looking over his shoulder. And he's like, you have an insatiable curiosity. He goes, it's crazy. He's like, you want to know, you're always trying. I was like, because I don't know. If I don't know something, I kind of want to know it. And I said, I value what you're like. This guy to me was super intelligent. So I wanted to learn anything I could from him. And that was an investment, right? That was something that I learned. So I don't know if I answered your question correctly.
Yeah, I mean, you answered it true to yourself, and that's that's answering it.
But so the flip side of that, I would say, is be an investor yourself. Then, right? There was a point where so many people invested in me that you have to say, okay, I'm going to be an investor, meaning that I'm going to take time when people, if I can, you don't want to force things on people, but and I'll be honest with you. I love it. It's my favorite part of anything I get to do is investing in other people. And if I get to spend spending time with you guys talking and, I was going to say also, like, I don't know, but like, it's probably at least once a year, I would like to spend time and come in and go over your, what's your strategic plan? What are your operational, what's your operations look like? What are your day-to-day operations? And then, and challenges, and just talk through that. Just spend because I would say that was another part of leading every quarter. Every quarter I would lay out, okay, guys, this is the plan. And we would go through what we achieved. But the question is how are we doing with that plan? Just like when we talk about the over the horizon, the captain has to go back and talk and update everybody. We have to talk about where are we going? How are we going to get there? What you're doing is so important to helping us get there. And, to me, that's fun to do. So
yeah,
we need to set something up.
So actually, we would love to have you back here. We should talk about that for sure and get it on the calendar. I know we've been really blessed to have your like as an advisor and someone who we can kind of go to. I have special access as my uncle, but we appreciate you. And we're kind of in a very exciting time right now. I feel like when you're in a fast growing tech company, it always feels very exciting, but it's extra exciting. So we should definitely talk. I know we're kind of up on the hour here, and I just want to respect your time. So I want to ask you one last question that I'm sure, folks might be wondering, and people who are listening that have their own tech startup companies or operators, maybe roboticists, who Tesla worker, I don't know who might be watching this video, but if you could kind of give like some final words of wisdom to anyone who's going into like the tech world as a leader, or just someone who wants to get involved as an employee in a big company, small company, just words of wisdom you'd give to anyone. And I know you've given me lots of great words of wisdom over the years. So,
Well, I think I love technology, right? So, I mean, when I was in a little kid and in high school and then even in college, right? I get enamored with technology, right? And the thing about it, like, it depends on what it is it's not so much like what I get enamored with is that it's not the technology as it exists, I guess. It's what it can do, right? And how it, again, I love that word enabled, like how it enables the future for us as humans and people and our environment too, right? And so that's the thing I would first start off in saying is if you're as you start, if you're, I'm going to go back to Elon, right? Because this is one thing I always said I loved about Elon was he was so good. He disconnected. He had everything aligned perfectly in a way. If you're doing it for money, right? Like so many people, I would say that so many companies get it wrong. And when we talk about the ends, the ways, and the means, right? Like the ends is what we're trying to achieve. The ways is the ways we're going to do it. And the means is the resources in which we have to go achieve it. And I would see I think some people and businesses and organizations and companies, man, so many companies now, even hospitals, I'm dealing with hospitals. They have got the end is they see a dollar figure. It's money. And they have it all wrong. So as you start off as a company, if your end is money, you've got it wrong, because money is not an end. Money is a means. It's the means that helps you achieve the end. And so if you get that wrong, I'll tell you, you're just probably not going to be successful. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there who will say that they've been highly successful, and that's fine. I bet but there's a point where, they're overall, I would say they're not successful. Like they're just Scrooge McDuck sitting there, flipping their coins or something maybe. And there's nobody else around them, you know what I mean, I guess. But what I would say is keep the focus on what you're trying to achieve in your purpose, right? And understand, how do you align everything around that, and get excited about it, right? And what I mean by that is another quote that I think about, Elon related is, I'm going to mess this quote up, but in his new book or whatever, I think it's in his new book, his mom, somebody asked his mom, how does someone become a billionaire, right? And I think May Musk, I think she said something along the lines, I don't want to mess this up, but I will, something along like, if you have ideas, or you try to come up with ideas that are going to change the world, people will give you billions of dollars to do that. And I mean, change the world in a positive way, and so, you think about that, like what you guys are doing right now at Humotech, again, you are trying to change the world, right? Like you literally are trying to change the world. You're trying to enable the world, which in fact will change the world. It'll change the way, we do business. It'll change the way people live their lives, the way we think about military operations, we think about the workplace environments, just so many different things. If you think of that and you keep that in your mind, like, how am I going to enable? I like the word enable and versus change, but how am I going to enable the world, right? And you keep that at the forefront. I think that's going to be the best thing you can do for your business, regardless of what you're trying to do. And there's so many different entrepreneurs out there and founders and startups that have proven that to be the case. But I also would say this: there's plenty of startups that they had it wrong. They had visions of money. They had visions of driving around in Model X's, big houses, and all these things. And maybe they were somewhat successful, but then they're going to run into a point where they're going to hit that wall because they were doing it for the wrong reasons. And you know what? People are going to stop investing in them. People are going to stop investing in them because the people that are around them in their day to day are going to see it, and they're going to be like, "I'm out of here. I'm no longer investing in you." the customers that they have, that they, I know we didn't get on that one, but we were talking about quality of product and everything else. You're going to start cost cutting. You're going to start doing things that your quality is going to drop, and your customers are going to stop investing in you. And then you have your investors, the people who have been giving you money and resources to help you, go out and change the world. They're going to stop investing in you. So, keep your eye on the purpose and the reason you're doing something, and don't let it ever be a means, right? Don't ever let it be for money, for a title, for the prestige. Keep it on what it should be, which is enabling us, humanity, and our environment, and even maybe the little creatures in our environment, who knows, right? All those things they're enriching. And how are you enriching everything we're doing? So I guess I'll leave it right there. And the truth is if you do that, I will tell you what, at the end of the day, when you invest in the right things, you'll get the most joy and happiness out of it. And if you invest in the wrong things, yeah, you may get some money, but you're not going to have happiness and joy. You're going to try to, you're going to be sitting there thinking, man, one day, why am I not happy? So do the right thing, keep the right focus. And I think you're going to be highly successful. So that's where I'll leave it.
Well, thank you so much. It's a great way to close this out. And thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Take care.
Take care.